To me, it looks a little bit more like Shaq and Kobe in this regard.
James plays like James plays. He is a terrific one-on-one basketball player. Joel Embiid is probably the most dominant player we have in the game today. He's like a miniature Shaq.
I'm going to get you going, and then whenever you go out, whenever you get tired, I can get mine. That was the conversation me and Kobe said. Get me going first, and then the third and fourth quarter, you take it over. But James has to get the big guy. Like, he just can't come down and jacking up threes and Joel Embiid not touch the ball.
Weeks ago, during that game against Minnesota, gets the drop on the trailer and says it with his chest.
The Harden era has officially begun for the 76ers, and if his first few games are any indication of this team's potential, then the rest of the league should be a little bit worried. Okay, they should be terrified. With Joel Embiid already playing like an MVP, this team didn't even need the 10-time All-Star to be fighting for a spot in the top of the East. But they got him anyway, and it just turned the final stretch of the regular season into must-see TV. Today, we're looking at what led up to this moment, what this Sixers team might look like going forward, some areas they need to improve on, and whether or not they can really be considered title contenders this year. Today's NBA moves fast. It kind of feels like you need a VCR in order to see James Harden in a Rockets jersey, yet somehow he was just traded last season. But this trade has been in the works for a long time now. It started a few years back when Houston traded for Russell Westbrook. Supposedly, then GM Daryl Morey was not a fan of the trade, yet Tillman Fertitta insisted upon it. We all know how that worked out. Things got worse when it came time to hire a new coach after Mike D'Antoni's departure in 2020. Apparently, Fertitta let the Rockets' top candidate, Tyronn Lue, go to the Clippers in order to avoid paying him what LA had offered him. This was likely the final straw for Morey. He stepped down in Houston that October to spend more time with his family. Turns out, Joel Embiid is his son, because not even a month later, he signed on as the GM of the Sixers and immediately started looking to bring in Harden. With Houston committing to a rebuild, they dealt Westbrook and started looking at trades for their former MVP. The best offer they got was from Morey and the Sixers, which included Ben Simmons, Matisse Thybulle, and draft compensation. Apparently, the trade was such a lock that Ben's agent informed him of the deal and told him to pack his bags. That's when Rockets owner Tillman Fertitta came in and killed the deal. Supposedly because Philly wouldn't include Tyrese Maxey, but it was probably, well, definitely more about Fertitta feeling salty that Morey left him. Harden eventually found his way over to Brooklyn, but it seems like he always wanted to be playing in Philly. He came into his first full season at the Nets looking like he definitely was skipping cardio day. He coasted through most of the year and literally just stopped playing basketball mid-game against Sacramento, and then left with hamstring tightness. It's honestly pretty embarrassing that he handled things like this, but hey, he got what he wanted in the end. The Nets caved in and flipped him to Philly, which worked wonders on his hamstring. And now we're here. But before we get into what the Harden Sixers are going to look like, we need to look at what Philly's been up to through the Embiid era. The process has been a very mixed bag, and it'll probably be several years before anyone can really call it a success or failure. But one thing is for sure. The fact that Philly netted Joel Embiid is a very, very good thing, because Joel Embiid is very, very good at basketball. He's improved his game every single year he's been in the league, and he has a very strong chance to take home the MVP this year. If he does, he'll be the first Sixer to win it since Allen Iverson back in 2001. But Embiid's job hasn't always been easy in Philly. In fact, he's had to work extremely hard to put up the incredible numbers he's had throughout his time as a Sixer. And that's due in big part to the lack of traditional point guard play and floor spacing. Simmons is a great passer, don't get me wrong. But as a floor spacer, he may be among one of the worst in the entire league. To show you how this affects Joel's game, take a look at how little Ben's defender cares about leaving him open on the perimeter. That's an easy double on Embiid. Here, Joel is trying to make something happen with triple teams flying at him as Ben sits in the dunker spot. That's not a point guard. Even a pure shooting guard like JJ Redick seemed to do a better job of making life easier for Joel with the pick and roll. And that's the thing. Life for Joel could have been much, much easier over the years if he was given more space and given the mismatches that the pick and roll provides. His hard-earned post-ups have been the core of the Sixers offense for years now. And he still makes magic happen even if he has to work insanely hard to do it. But it wears on him, which leads to late game fatigue, or worse, injury. Tyrese Maxey shifting to the point guard spot this year has allowed for more traditional offense, which has led to some easier buckets and probably contributed to Embiid's MVP campaign. But Harden's arrival takes things to a whole nother level. And it's easy to imagine that Joel is ecstatic about it. And so is Daryl Morey. The Sixers GM has been Harden's biggest fan for many years now, and that's because he's the perfect Morey ball player. If you don't already know, Morey ball is the nickname for Morey's analytical approach to basketball, which it values threes, layups, and free throws above all else. Sound like anyone you know? Some argue that this basketball philosophy results in too many boring ISO plays. But you can't deny that it's had a lot of success when the Rockets had the right players. And they might have won a title if it wasn't for one CP3 injury and the most stacked team ever assembled. Harden and the Morey ball system boosted the careers of a number of former Rockets. There's a big reason that Clint Capella was leading the league in field goal percentage in 2017. James Harden was able to get him a ton of wide open dunks, which is a highly valued shot in every basketball philosophy. He didn't just help out the big man though. Both Eric Gordon and Ryan Anderson posted the best effective field goal percentage of their career playing with Harden. It looks like simple basketball, and that's because it is. But the main reason why these buckets come so easy is because of the gravity and vision of James Harden. So now that Morey finally has his point guard back, does that mean the sky's the limit for the Sixers? Well, so far the answer to that question is a big fat yes. Get this, in his first 2 games, Harden is averaging 28 points, 14 assists, and 9 rebounds, with 2.5 steals, while shooting 58% from the field and 57% from 3. In just his second game, he made history by becoming the first Sixer ever to post a 25, 10, 15, and 5 game. These are video game numbers. He's not out of shape, he's not injured, he's not unhappy with his situation, and so far, there haven't been very many of these.
Yeah. He dribble, and then shoots a step back 3.
Backs on the road in January.
Harden gives it up to Capella for the flush.
Now, Harden probably won't keep up this level of production, but there are at least 3 things that you can bet on him bringing every time he plays. Number 1 is floor spacing. Harden can pretty much do anything offensively at any given time. So he'll be demanding a ton of attention from one or more defenders no matter where he is on the floor. A teammate like that is something Joel Embiid has never enjoyed. Look at the difference at the Sixers' half-court offense when Ben Simmons was at the point. LeBron leaves him wide open. The disrespect is ridiculous. The Sixers had to work extra hard to get open because Ben's lack of shooting and floor spacing. Now with Harden, players like Tyrese Maxey are flourishing. In his last 3 games, Maxey is averaging 25 points on 64% from the field and 64% from 3. Granted, Tyrese has proven himself to be extremely bright young talent, but he's getting easier looks, playing worse defenders, and is able to play more freely. Just check out what former teammate Chandler Parsons had to say about Harden.
He made the game so easy. That was my best year. I averaged like 17, 18 points because he would just lull the defender to sleep, kick it to me, and I would either catch and shoot. Playing with James, he made it so easy where, it turned out to not be that easy when I left. James, he's the best player I ever played with. Wow.
Number 2 is scoring. Harden has 3 scoring titles to his name, and that's because he can do whatever he wants on the basketball court. He's one of the best finishers alive.
Harden goes behind the back, gets to the rim, and what a beautiful shot.
And he can do it through contact.
Second quarter. This is Harden working his way inside. Man, this dude, are you kidding me?
His floater package is deadly.
Guys outscore you. Harden into the lane.
He's got one of the best step backs in the game.
You're going to see him. Here he comes. He goes, and he still gets it up.
He also can draw fouls better than just about anyone else. You get the point. This level of scoring versatility is something not even Embiid can provide for the Sixers. Number 3 is his passing. Harden's scoring ability can make it easy to forget that he's also one of the best passers in the league. He led the league in assists in 2017 with 11.2 per game, and he's been averaging better than 9 ever since. Ben Simmons has never averaged 9 assists in his career. Harden can find the open teammate in any scenario, whether it's on a fast break,
Edwards back taps it for right into the hands of Harden, who feeds Maxey.
Out of the double team,
Harden for Maxey.
Off a drive and kick,
All of that. Harden.
on the pick and roll,
He's we have of seeing James Harden dribble up the floor.
Or the pick and pop.
They haven't created Carl with a there you go.
Or with a lob.
So good last night in the third quarter. No doubt. Embiid under.
Again, easy buckets like this are something Joel has almost never had the luxury of. The Sixers have consistently ranked the bottom or near the bottom of the league in percentage of pick and roll plays throughout Embiid's career. Imagine that. You're one of the most dominant and versatile centers in the NBA. You can score from all levels. And your coach hasn't been able to run a traditional pick and roll for your entire career. For context, the top 4 most efficient offensive teams in the NBA right now run the highest frequency of pick and rolls in the league. These teams mastered the traditional 1-5 pick and roll, and their team flourishes for it. The Sixers have begun to run more since Doc Rivers was hired and Ben Simmons has been out. But they're still only ranked 15th in the league this year. With Harden on the floor, things are likely to change, and it can mean great things for not only Embiid, but the entire team. Another thing that Harden can add to the Sixers that's likely to torture other teams and most NBA fans is his ability to draw fouls. Harden is 4th in the league in free throw attempts this season, and guess who's number 1? Joel Embiid. On their best nights, these two will have opponents in foul trouble by the middle of the second quarter. This can be an amazing asset during crunch time in the playoffs when Philly needs a bucket, and it's the total opposite of what Simmons brought to a playoff series.
Like exciting plays yet. Well, it was on this floor in game 1.
But let's not get ahead of ourselves here. There's obviously plenty of potential for this team to be fantastic, but we can't forget about Harden's shortcomings. He's been known to dribble too much and rely too heavily on isolation plays.
Yeah. He dribble, and then shoots a step back 3.
Although that hasn't been the case so far with him in Philly. In Philly, he's even moving off the ball, which is unusual for him. But the ball movement and cutting won't solve everything for Harden. He's no Ben Simmons on the defensive end. Not even close. Harden has also led the league in turnovers in 6 of the last 10 seasons. And he's had some legendary cold streaks. In the playoffs, when the game slows down, Harden has a reputation for becoming less efficient, less effective, and possibly being a straight-up choke artist. We also shouldn't discount the fact that he's absolutely quit on both the Rockets and the Nets. Like literally in the middle of the game. Will he have a change of heart about Philly if things start to go wrong and meshing with Embiid proves harder than expected? Tough to say. Then there's the issue of Tobias Harris. Tobias is averaging 10 points per game and shooting 38% from the field since Harden's arrival in Philly. It's not clear what his role will look like with a superstar being added to the roster, but he's going to need to figure it out in order for this team to reach its full potential. And judging by the last few games of the Harden era, this potential is extremely high. Like possibly even title contender high, if they can overcome these shortcomings and build chemistry in time for the playoffs. While there are plenty question marks waiting to be answered, Philly has to be pretty happy about what they got for Ben Simmons, a dude who refused to even play for them, and a dude who seems to be ducking them in the upcoming Nets vs. Sixers game. That's the last thing you want to see in your star player. I'm sure Ben is not the only one who doesn't want any smoke with the Sixers, though. They're looking deadly so far, and it's going to be interesting to see where it goes from here. But what do you think? Can the Sixers actually beat a healthy Nets team? How far do you think they'll go in the playoffs? Let me know what you think in the comments below. If you enjoyed these longer videos, hit the subscribe button and tick the notification bell. I have a ton of awesome content coming out, and I always tailor my videos for the Henry Hoops audience. So if you don't want to miss out, hit the subscribe button. Peace.
The team meeting. I appreciate it if you get the out so we can handle our business. So where we going, y'all? Where we going? Jamaica, Las Vegas. We gotta hit. Get the out. You don't hear me? Am I stuttering? Get the out, man. Get out.